Welcome back to the vendor table.
What's up?
Oh man, we're back.
Fine here.
Oh, she's here. Oh, we've been saying for so long we're gonna have somebody on the show that we love and admire, and seek her advice all the time. And she probably gets so annoyed at us that we ask her so many questions.
No, I love it.
But we're so excited to welcome Paige Griffith, who is better known as the Legal Paige. Super excited to have you on, Paige. If you guys didn't know, Paige is a contract lawyer. She is the person in charge of the Legal Paige, where you could get so many amazing contract templates for if you're a wedding pro, especially. You also have a new venture, which is really cool. And I want you to tell us a little bit about that. But we're super excited to have you on. Thank you for coming by. Paige is also a sponsor of the show. We love her. We have a code if you guys want to check out her contracts and shit. And this episode is going to come out at a great time of year, by the way. It's Black Friday time, where she's going to have some crazy promotions, and we'll have her talk about that a little bit too. But Paige, so tell us a little bit about yourself, your background summary, maybe how you got started, how your journey, people don't know you are also a photographer, and how you created the Legal Paige.
Yeah, you guys, we have been voice messaging back and forth for some time now about this recording. I am really excited that we made it happen. So thanks for letting me come on as one of your first remote guests. This is going to be a good time. Okay, so a little bit about my background. It's kind of like a weird, I would say, marrying of two passions of entrepreneurship and the law. So over 10 years ago, I was in law school, and I decided, what the heck? I guess it was a phenomenal time to start a photography business since I didn't have enough on my plate already. But it was really honestly hard to find a part-time job at the time that aligned with my school schedule. And I was really obviously working one side of my brain in academia, and I was very interested for, I guess, the whole of my life in kind of being a creative in creative arts and taking photos. So I actually called up a friend of mine, and this was in my 1L year of law school. He was a pretty well-known photographer here in town, and this is coming back to Montana with 1 degree of separation. He was actually my elementary school neighbor growing up. And I just said hey, I'm kind of interested in getting into this. What would you suggest? And it was a really beautiful, good example of kind of not worrying about competition so much and just the beauty of working together and being a community of photographers. He told me to get a Canon, get a nifty 50 and go for it. And I'm so excited, and let me know if you have any questions. And since then I fell in love with photography. And honestly, at that period of time, I really, truly loved the art of building a business from the ground up and entrepreneurship as a whole. But I was still in law school, so that's really important part of the story. Academics was everything to me, and I worked really hard to get to law school, worked really hard in law school. So 3 years later, I was heading actually into a clerkship with a federal judge. But I was also running a full-time photography business at the time. I was shooting 20 to 30 weddings a year, hundreds of family sessions and senior sessions and mini sessions. I also even had an associate on my team. So I know a lot about associate photography and kind of doing that as well. So it was a fun period of time. It was a busy period of time, but I didn't have kids. And I always look back on that moment in time with fond memories of, my goodness, I had so much time on my hands. And then at the end of my clerkship, so that was about 2 years later, it was one of the best jobs I'll ever have. I worked for one of the best judges I could have ever worked for. And I will never, ever, ever forget this moment when I was supposed to kind of figure out what was next, right? The clerkship was ending. It's usually kind of a transition job right after law school. And usually you're on a train that you can't get off of going kind of to a law firm and partner track and all of those different things. So I had some interviews lined up. And the judge came in to my office. His chambers were right across the hallway. And he walks over and he sits down in a chair and goes, "Paige, I really don't think you should take these interviews. I think you should probably do something different with your law degree." And it was this permission slip that I didn't know I needed, and maybe I needed at the same time. And I swear, a few months later, the Legal Paige was born. I was able to marry kind of my entrepreneur and legal passions into one. Worked my fanny off for quite a few years trying to make TLP an actual thing. I was definitely in the red for a while. And then I will say there was a pivotal moment in time where we were building the team, and then this huge pandemic happened in the world. And I was kind of online at that time and ready to help the whole wedding industry as a whole. We were all rocked really hard contractually together. And I was just there, able to work 16 hours a day. And so those were a pivotal 3 months for the business as a whole. And then since then, I mean, I can't believe it's only almost been 5 years. We've just continued to grow, adding more attorneys onto the team, adding more team members, and trying to help as many more creatives and entrepreneurs. And now we've expanded to all kinds of small business owners, even brick and mortars. So yeah, that's the Legal Page and kind of my background. I still shoot photography a little bit. It's more of a hobby now. I actually just did a brand shoot for a law firm in town, and that was really fun to kind of still flex my photography muscle. And I did some family shoots this fall, but I don't do it very often. And I mainly just run the Legal Page. We're a contract template shop and legal education platform.
Well, you are like the resource. Like, so over the last 5 years, you have built a brand, a business, an identity that is now one of the most sought after and like iconic industry related legal resources. So congratulations, you've done an amazing job.
Well, thanks. I think there's the background that I have really allows me to kind of see contracts very differently, see the legal world really differently. So I'm not just some random small business or business lawyer. Like I understand kind of the pain points that creatives are facing, particularly the wedding industry as a whole, and what pain points your clients have. I have my finger in the industry all of the time. My whole team does. So I think that maybe sets us apart from other virtual law firms online and legal platforms.
Amazing.
Nice. Now, when you started the Legal Page and you started selling contracts online, were you like mainly focusing on photography-based contracts first and then like started expanding to other vendors when the demand was there? Is that how that worked?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you got to start somewhere. So I had photography contract templates up first, basically the wedding photography contract. That's like a more traditional venue-based contract, kind of a family and sessions general portrait contract. And then I just kind of continued to build my contract library from there. I would say we still serve primarily, the majority of our target market is photographers. But it just the percentage keeps going down every year, which is really interesting. It was 80, 90, 95%. I would say now it's definitely closer to 40 to 50%. And I would venture that next year it goes down even more. Just because there's not a lot of lawyers online still, if you can believe it, after 2020. I mean, the whole legal world was rocked at that time and nobody was online. And then everyone kind of realized that you can do legal things online. You can be lawyers remotely. And yeah, so I think more people are understanding that you can get legal education and legal knowledge and contracts online. So yeah, we're just expanding kind of the industries that we serve. And I would say we have the whole of the wedding industry now and just all kinds of different online entrepreneurs, if you can think about it. Of course, coaches and fitness, nutritional professionals as well. So it's rocking and rolling every day. I would say we get in our inbox at least 2 to 3 unique business owners that like do something that we don't have a contract for. It's crazy.
That's so awesome. That really is super cool. Now, all right, you might not know the answer to this, but like, do you know how many like contracts you have sold, like since the creation of Legal Page?
Probably, I would say like 20 to 30,000 plus.
Holy shit.
We have over 10,000 customers. I do know that number. We hit that actually in 2024. So that was kind of a big deal. But we have a lot of customers that have bought multiple contracts from us, or maybe they buy a couple contracts and then some short forms, which we'll probably talk about today. So the actual number of like legal documents that have been purchased are probably up in that number.
That's
Yeah.
insane. Damn. Lauren, take the next question.
Sure. Can you tell us about a time where your contract purchased by a customer bailed them out in a court of law?
Yeah, I won't ever forget this because it happened actually in our Facebook group. And we have so the Legal Page community on Facebook, it's this very like collegial group. I keep it pretty tight and not a lot of rockiness happening in the group. But It's a place for myself and my legal team to be able to answer legal questions instead of having that one-on-one attorney-client privilege issue pop up. So if it's in a group environment, then I can answer questions there. And a lot of times people are talking about like a dispute and how it didn't go right or like what to do, and they're gleaning advice from us or other industry professionals that are in there that have experienced something similar. So it's a really good place to go if you guys are interested. I'm not just making that plug, but things like this happen, and you can social listen in the group and get a lot of knowledge that way too. If you don't want to like participate, you can just look at posts. One post was from this gal named Cherie, and she was talking about a session that had occurred or didn't occur, but it was booked. It was a larger session for I think over $1,000 because the non-refundable retainer was around $650, and the client canceled it more than 30 days out. So it's kind of a voluntary cancellation situation. And she used a TOP cancellation contract, sent it over to the client. The client signed, no problem, because the client wanted to be released from any future payment obligations, and signed it. And then through Honeybook, there was a chargeback dispute. A few weeks later, much to this photographer's dismay, that she thought she had amicably kind of resolved this with the client. But she had this cancellation contract that was signed. And yes, it has to go through the dispute process. This happens with any payment processor, not just like one, it doesn't happen just on one platform. I want everyone to know, like one CRM system. But one thing I will say to Honeybook in this situation is this photographer won the dispute. She came back and literally said, I'm going to read it right here. Update, it took almost the full 90 days to resolve, but thanks to TLP's cancellation contract, I won the dispute. So because she took the initiative to get that signed, that kind of signed document was the glue to the contract and the ending of the relationship and what the client agreed to. And so the chargeback was reversed.
Very nice.
That's-
Love to hear it.
Love it.
Chargebacks suck.
Yeah.
No, we could go down rabbit holes with chargebacks.
It's like one of the more common things that people are doing to like try and get their non-refundable retainer back, which is like, sorry, that's like the shadiest thing you can do as a client. Like when you signed your contract that this is non-refundable and thus it is non-refundable.
Yeah, the unfortunate thing is there's no way around chargebacks. It's a cost of doing business right now online, especially if you're taking payments like credit cards and debit cards. I know people don't want to hear that, but it's the reality of online business and gathering payments from people. There's the convenience of that. So sometimes it's nice to have that option. And the only truly way to not have a chargeback looming in the distance potentially is purely check or cash. And some vendors have just only gone to that. I do though think that you could be missing out on booking clients a little bit more easily.
Agreed.
Yeah. Yeah, I had a situation last year where a client accidentally hit the chargeback feature on Honeybook, and oh my God, it was like a nightmare to go through it. And she was like, "I'm so sorry, I didn't realize what the charge was in my account." Really, while it's convenient for users, it also could be a hassle and everything like that. But that's so cool that your customer or your client really was able to get, not to say bailed out, but the contract was that lock solid that they were able to be like, hey, look at this, it bailed me out. I love that. So, and then that's what we all want as vendors, is to know that our contracts, if we're abiding by our contracts, hey, we're covered here. So now, okay, next question is, being a contract lawyer yourself, what's your thoughts on AI written contracts? Should users be aware of these?
I have lots of thoughts on this topic because we all utilize AI all the time, right? It's great. It's only getting better. It's going to continue to get better. I think, honestly, there is a time and place to use it. Not for drafting contracts, but my team and I use AI a lot, right? We use it for headlines, for Instagram captions. We use it for little marketing blurbs. I have tested out helping me write a certain portion of a clause if I just can't get the wording correctly. But most of the time I do a way better job than AI. So let me explain a little bit more. There is a time and place for AI to draft certain portions, like a couple sentences is what I'm saying here, in your contract if it's very, very business specific, if it's not legal specific. So a really good example of this is if you have a wedding photography contract and you're adding in like a complimentary engagement session. I don't necessarily agree with complimentary engagement sessions for legal reasons because I think those are two actually very separate things. And so we don't have them in our contracts. I would suggest that you have like two different contracts for those situations. But lots of people have wanted to add in something like that to their wedding photography contract. And because you're not necessarily dealing with heavy legal language there, you might, and I'm using that word very cautiously, be able to draft something using AI that might align with your contract in that situation. It's good for people to generate at least the first draft of something. And I know you've probably heard this before with generative AI platforms. But I want to do some caveats here because it's really important for people to know. AI is not a human attorney. I know that ChatGPT took the bar and passed, but if you ask any attorney out there, taking the bar exam does not mean you are considered a good lawyer. It's like the bar exam is just a logic test. It's so dang formulated. And the art of lawyering, I truly believe, and any attorney will tell you, it's based on experience. It's based on understanding the nuances of the law, particularly with contract lawyers, and the nuances of drafting actual contracts, arguing within the gray areas instead of just the black and white situations. And all doing that all at the same time or zealously advocating for your client. So I don't think a robot can do all of those things right now. It truly takes the human touch. I also think that AI can't look at the whole of an industry, and I know we kind of talked about that already. But when you're drafting contracts and writing legal clauses, you want it to be very industry wide and not super specific necessarily to like the only one way that someone does something. And you want all of the clauses to work together. So AI can get things wrong, and I have noticed this time and time again when drafting legal contracts. You think it's giving you the right output, but you can't undervalue an attorney's knowledge of how contracts are going to be potentially reviewed by an interpreter, which is a judge or a jury or a mediator or an arbiter. We have experience in that situation. So you just have to be careful using AI because it's never going to be as good as if an attorney was writing it. It's not going to catch things like duplicative language or state specific clauses. It could give you an output and regurgitate a few sentences for you that actually may make other portions of your contract void because it's using contradictory language and it didn't catch that. So those are just a few things. I definitely think there's a time and place for AI. I do think it's getting better, but right now, as you're asking me this question, I definitely think beware.
That's like the equivalent of trying to remove something from someone's hand and it adding like 16 fingers. So I get it.
Yes.
That's there's so much into it. Like the way I see people using AI, and we've been asking an AI question to every guest, like how utilizing AI into your workflow. Because we all know, like everybody, I think there's every industry in the world, I think, is using some form of AI to help.
No.
Yeah, you're not using AI to like help you draft emails. I don't know what you're doing. You're wasting time every single day.
Yeah. Like even our CRM systems now have built in like, auto responses. Like I got one the other day that was just, it was like, here's your recap before your meeting. And I'm like,
Oh yeah.
I'm like, this is really cool. Like they're like, and that's like AI generated. So I was like, oh wow, look at that review.
Did you also see in HoneyBook now, like when you set up a Zoom meeting through HoneyBook, it transcribes the entire meeting?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's like Fathom. Yeah. If you guys aren't using like Fathom for your meetings too, oh, it's beautiful.
Yeah. So AI is like has its place obviously in the wedding industry. And I think like a lot of people are looking to like something like ChatGPT to, like if you're starting out, like they're like, oh, I could just have ChatGPT draft a contract for me. I'm like, that is, but okay, like we know it can help with certain things, but at the same
I think
point,
it can.
we're like, invest in a good contract. I think that's the number one thing that, like, having you on, right? Like, we told a lot of people, we had a whole episode devoted to like how we got started in the industry. And a lot of people are like, oh, just, like the first thing you do is have a portfolio and post on social media. I'm like, yeah, okay. But like, how are you going to book your next client if you don't have a contract? Like, invest in the back end items. So contracts are probably, if not the most important investment you're going to make as a small business owner in the wedding industry. So having a good contract and having that at your disposal to send to clients is so damn important. So if you're going to use AI to do anything, maybe don't use it for your contract.
Strongly don't recommend.
Strongly don't recommend, especially from like start to finish of a contract.
Right.
And boilerplate language and all of the legal mumbo jumbo at the bottom, general provisions, like don't use AI for that kind of thing.
There you go. Right from a fucking
Right from the lawyer.
Right from the lawyer herself. Okay. All right.
Here's what's going to be the funniest thing with this episode, right? And I know it's going to happen because this happens to us every single time we launch an episode. We could have the answer, right? It's not an opinion. It is solid, black and white. The answer is there. There are no opinions. It is the answer. There's always going to be some person in the comments that's like, well, actually, no. And here's why. So I'm actually looking forward to seeing that happen
Yeah.
from all the keyboard lawyers.
Yeah.
We'll be careful with that clip. And yes, we'll watch out for the keyboard lawyers. Everyone thinks they're a lawyer. Unlike like a CPA or a doctor, usually people don't try to be those things, but for whatever reason, they try to be lawyers.
Right.
Yeah. And you know what? That's a good bridge, Lauren, into our next question, because let's ask probably one of the most sensitive questions. And we've gone viral for a clip about this topic, Paige, probably more than once. It's something that we need to address. Having you on the show, we have a lot of vendors that aren't photographers or videographers that tune into the show every week, and they are unaware of how things work. But we've slowly educated a lot of people on how things work through experience and through knowledge, and also your insight. So next question is, a lot of non-photographer vendors often try to add a clause into their contract for couples to sign. That clause often states that the couple is required to turn over the rights of those images to that vendor. Is it legal for those vendors, those non-photography vendors, to do something like that?
You can't require something in a contract when the person that you are contracting with has no authority legally to deliver. So clients do not own the commercial rights to photographs unless the photographer has sold them a commercial license to use or their copyright rights fully and assigned them over to the client. Usually what clients have is what's called a personal license to use, and that would be for themselves, their family, and their friends. If we're talking here, the wedding industry and like portrait photography industry. So vendors, in an actual contract, what you can't do is require clients to give over professional photographs from the photographer to be used for commercial use. Our contracts, though, for other vendors like venues and florists and DJs and caterers and wedding planners, they have the right to reach out to the photographer to request the photos. That way, it's already within the contract with your client that they're agreeing to kind of the model release and you being able to do this and reach out to the photographer who has the rights to be able to give those over to you. And then ultimately, it's up to each vendor then to reach out to the photographer and ask to use the photos. It's also totally up to the photographer on whether they say yes. I do usually recommend that photographers have some kind of agreement in place when sharing their photos with vendors. And everyone does this their own way. They do it. There's no right or wrong answer here. I think that a lot of photographers do it for collaboration and marketing and advertising purposes. I was one of those photographers where I would freely give highlight images to all vendors involved. But instead of, you can have, there's two different ways to do this as a photographer. You can freely give them. I would just be really clear in an email and kind of the confines of what that commercial license to use is. A lot of times it's just for like social media and website use. And if you go kind of beyond the bounds of that commercial license to use the photos that I'm giving to you as the photographer, like a huge billboard or a massive spread in like a wedding magazine or something, additional usage requires additional compensation type of thing. You can also kind of go a little bit more formal and have them sign a non-exclusive licensing agreement to the photos. But legally speaking, if I'm going back to your question, you cannot just have that explicitly stated in a vendor contract because the clients don't have the rights to actually do that.
Now, let me piggyback on that question, because a lot of the pushback that we received when we said this, and we did talk to you before we even said anything, because we wanted to make sure that we were being so for real with everyone, you know? We did not want to fuck this up. We wanted to be 100% clear with everyone. We had a lot of planners, florists, and other people who were saying, well, without my designs, you would have nothing to photograph. Or my designs now, I don't give you permission to photograph them. So what rights exactly do they have to do something like that?
Yeah, I have an entire YouTube episode on this, but it's all about the copyright usage of temporary works and whether those are actually copyrightable. So potentially, they might have some rights there, but most of those are like transitional pieces, temporary pieces, and there's no like copyright within a copyright, if that makes sense, even though they feel like there is something there. Usually, like a wedding planner would have a lot of IP rights to like documentation that has been made in kind of an express tangible form on a PDF. That thing you couldn't like photograph and sell, right? But the wedding as a whole, the photographs from a photographer are still the photographer's. And I would say that the client, like you have agreed as a vendor by working with the client to put on this thing. So actually, is it yours or is it the client's?
Oh,
That's another thing that we could get into there. We don't need to, because truly, we're just talking about photo rights and how vendors can get it. And I don't know why this has become such a point of contention between wedding vendors. And Mike and Lauren, I would love to hear your guys' take on this, because a decade ago, when I was photographing weddings, I feel like there was a lot more camaraderie and people were just working together a lot more easily. And I never had pushback from venues. I've never had pushback from other vendors. It's just like weird things that are happening contractually. And then I'm thinking as well, if your client is coming to you and saying, hey, can I do this? You've got a really good client because they value your work as a photographer. They're worried about what they can and cannot do with those photographs. They've probably read your contract. And I just think if you have like a venue or a florist, or a venue, for example, they're like demanding a photographer sign a contract to release all of the copyright images to them to work on their property, right? They can demand anything they want. That doesn't mean that they will get it. And I actually always think communication is key, because the fact that clients are then coming to you to let you know that the venue demands something shows that they care. Yeah, we can get into this a bit more if you guys want to.
Yeah.
Let me know where you guys want to go with this.
Yeah, no. So, okay. Getting back to like what you were asking us, I know where the shift happened because I've been doing this for 12 years. The shift happened on social media, Instagram. Okay. Once when vendors went on social in terms of using Instagram or using social media to really advertise their business, they saw the opportunity to start marketing themselves on those platforms. Okay. While it was a photography medium and like everybody was using Instagram to show off photos, once photographers started posting photos from weddings, things like that, you started to see planners, florists, venues, things like that hop on there and start saying, hey, this is a good way to showcase our property or our work or things like that.
So this episode is sponsored by the Legal Paige. The Legal Paige is a legal education platform for small businesses and a contract template shop. They help you get legally legit in minutes. So Lauren,
I've been using a Legal Paige contract for a while now.
I know you have, and guess what?
Did you do it?
I did. I took the jump. I took the jump and I implemented Paige's contract into my proposals and everything.
How amazing.
Oh my God. There was so much in there that like just covers my bases.
That you wouldn't even think of.
I'm like, where was this my whole life? So they have literally changed the game for me. They have made me feel a lot more secure in my business. And I really think you guys should take a look.
Just take a peek.
Just take a peek. Take a peek.
And there's also something for anything. Like, I've gotten a couple of destination inquiries and realized that I needed to change my contract. So you can purchase a destination wedding contract.
Yeah, maybe if you have a second shooter or an associate shooter and you need an agreement, they have those as well. So it doesn't matter what you are in the industry, whether you're a photographer, videographer, planner, florist, DJ, you name it, the Legal Paige has a contract that will make your business legally legit.
All contracts have been reviewed and critiqued by industry-leading professionals and come with free future updates made by the Legal Paige's legal team.
And I don't know if you guys know this, but Paige is a retired wedding and family photographer, as well as an attorney. So she has a very unique perspective and expertise when it comes to photography contracts. They offer education through blog posts, podcast episodes, YouTube channel, pretty much you name it.
The whole nine.
So definitely check them out. Use the link in the show notes to get legally legit. And you know what's really cool about it, Lauren? We got a code.
We got a code. Use TVT10.
And that will get you what?
10% off anything in the shop.
So you want to get your business legally legit? Check out the Legal Paige.
We just want to give a special shout out to Maru, one of our sponsors. Maru is a modern payment experience for the weddings and events industry.
Maru has added some incredible new features, including the ability to send contracts, create itemized invoices, and our personal favorite, the ability to pay contractors.
Love this.
Yeah, like that makes me so happy to have a platform that if I need to pay like an associate or a second shooter, I'm paying them right through Maru. It just goes right to their bank account, makes things so nice and easy.
It's also so neat and organized.
Yes.
You can find anything.
Super organized. Like, I love it because I'm just like, hey, I got to print it out at the end of the year, send my accountant over for tax purposes and all that stuff.
Perfect.
It keeps things so nice and neat.
Maru is a community of 10,000 plus wedding and event professionals, and it's growing. They offer seamless transactions and a hassle-free payment experience. They make it easy for you to focus on what you do best, creating memorable experiences.
So we went over it, but with Maru, you could create and share your contract, accept and make payments without processing fees, offer clients a simpler experience, no need to sign up, just pay and go, and pay your contractors, something we both love. So it also keeps all your payments neatly organized in the central hub. You could sign up for free at maru.us/TBT.
So a lot of vendors think from the perspective of not servicing their client, but they think from the perspective of how do I market myself to the next client? So where I see this happen the most is usually with the vendors that, not to say are selfish, but are looking for their next payday. And I get it from the perspective of like, as a photographer, we don't have to think about that because it's our work. Okay. We constantly have that to hand to the next, to show off and advertise ourselves and to market ourselves. Whereas somebody like a planner, a florist, things like that, they rely on the photographer or the videographer to create that content for them. And then they're asking for that in return for whatever. Okay. I see it from the perspective of, okay, as a vendor, I'm going to play nice in the sandbox. One, it's great advertising for myself. What I don't understand is, trying to put that in your contract to have the client release the images to you. That's not cool. Okay. And I think if these people get educated on the fact that, like, listen, you can't have the client sign over a copyright agreement for something they don't own themselves. Because that's the big thing is a lot of these other vendors are saying like the copyright now belongs to me as the other vendor of these photos. And I could use them commercially for advertising and for social media. Listen, if you want to use the damn images, okay, for social media purposes, you want to like show off the photographer's work, most will give you the images at no charge. All you got to do is fucking tag them. That's all you got to do is tag them.
And just ask, right? The communication is key. I think, yeah, ask nicely. And photographers are like, thank you for valuing my work as much as I valued working with you.
That's it. That's all you got to do. So I just think that, like, hey, if you're going to draft up a contract and you're going to try to put that on the client, one, like you said, you can't do that. Okay. But like, okay, like you touched on it a little bit. Okay. Does the venue though have any rights to those images if the photographer's working on the property? Does the venue have any rights to the images? Like can they enforce a photographer to sign a contract or anything like that?
No, they don't own any rights to the images. There's nothing. They have allowed photographing and an event to occur by a client purchasing a license to use their grounds for those purposes. But still, the copyright rights to the images, we're still talking about the photographs themselves. Those copyright rights lie with the photographer. Unless there was some type of copyright assignment, full copyright assignment, or massive commercial license to use that was given to the client.
So there that is, people. So a
Yeah.
lot of you have asked us, like, a venue is making us sign an agreement or a contract saying we have to turn over the rights. They can't do that.
Yeah, I think there's a nuance here with clause language that's getting really muddy. That the full, like, you have to send me all of the photographs when you get the gallery. You can't say that in a contract. But what you can say from another wedding vendor or a venue is I have the rights to reach out to the photographer to ask for those images, and you as the client are giving me a model release to use those images of you in them if I get those photos for commercial use from the photographer. Do you see the nuance difference there?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I do.
And
That's
that's
the
the
answer.
playing nice in the sandbox situation. But I honestly think that's what venues and florists and wedding planners are really trying to say in their contract. And they may just not truly understand the nuances of intellectual property law.
I also think it's a lot of people who maybe are part of community Facebook groups who are seeing like, oh, maybe this is a situation where I need to add a clause to my contract, and they're going and doing it themselves. Like,
Yeah.
you
And
know,
they think that that's okay. You can put something in your contract. It doesn't mean it's valid and enforceable.
correct. And we've said this until we're blue in the face. Like 9 times out of 10, if you ask the photographer to use the images for social media and promotional purposes, they will let you. They'll give them to you. But it's you're setting the tone already in these contracts that won't hold up for a relationship to go sour. There's entitlement here where you are not entitled to those images. If you nicely ask respectfully, then yes, most of the time the photographer will turn those images, relevant images, to you. But you also have to remember, like, there are sensitive images in these galleries.
Yeah.
These are intimate moments of these people. It's their families. There's children's faces in there. Like, not every client is going to want to release a full gallery of their images to a vendor. So that's something to bear in mind as well. Yeah.
I think so. I think you're spot on there, Lauren, because we do specifically curate and cull highlight images for vendors in that respect. We're trying to be very cognizant of who's in the imagery. What are we photographing? What is going to highlight your business the best? So that's another reason to reach out to the photographer. One thing I will say is if you are getting this email, if you're a photographer and you're getting this email from a client that's like, hey, I was told that I have to give this whole thing over to a venue or to a florist, like, what do I do in this situation? You're probably going to be heated and emotional in your initial state. Take a second and breathe and figure out how you can diffuse this situation with kindness and also with authority over your understanding of copyright law. And I would just say you could easily send your client like a copy and paste email that's like, hey, yes, I've had this situation happen before. Here's what I would send back to them. And then it's like a really low lift for your clients. And that email can be really simple, like, hey, I spoke with my photographer and they are more than happy to license up to 15 images to you complimentary. They just ask that vendors either sign a non-exclusive license agreement, or maybe they just ask that vendors tag them appropriately. I'll CC the photographer here so that you both can communicate about this. Boom. It gets your client out of that middleman situation, and it puts that communication back between you and the other vendor.
Beautiful.
Yeah, love
One
that.
thing I do want to say is a lot of the vendors that have expressed frustration with photographers, maybe who have ghosted. Let's say that we're talking about like vendors who have requested images, they worked great on the day of, and they don't hear anything back from the photographer, and they immediately just like have this bad taste in their mouth, and that's why they're doing this.
Mm-hmm.
Please understand that photographers also have multiple events that they are editing. They are still running a business for their clients. So every now and again, it might slip through the cracks. They forget. Grace, follow up. Hey, it would really mean a lot to me if I'd be able to use a few photos. But Jesus Christ, stop it. Being like, like the next day after a wedding, send me a gallery. Bitch, they don't get their photos for 8 to 10 weeks.
Yeah.
Why are you asking me to send you photos after a week?
Yeah,
Chill.
you're not getting vendor photos before a client gets their photos, and that's like
Absolutely the fuck not.
that's why we honestly like we've told people that, we've said this on the show before, but play nice in the sandbox. Like, if you're a photographer, play nice in the sandbox. Okay. I think it's great advertising, marketing. It's great for you to share the images with other vendors. Okay. Let them use the images. Okay. You could curate those and pick the ones you want. Okay. Totally fine to do that. But, okay, other vendors realize, okay, if you get 2 back, 5 back, 10 back, or a whole gallery, 1, be grateful of that. And 2, okay, tag the other vendor. Okay. Tag the photographer, I should say. Okay. 3, okay, don't use those commercially unless you sign or you pay for those rights. Okay. Advertising, print material, all that shit. You're writing a book. Okay. You can't use the images for your book. Okay. You got to buy the rights to those. So I think a lot of people are like, like I mentioned this earlier, but I think other vendors, like, I get it. You want to advertise for your next wedding, and I get that you want to put out, you like a beautiful, you work so fucking hard on this. Okay. This day, you're a planner, you're a florist, anybody. Okay. You work so fucking hard, and you put a lot of time and effort in, and you have nothing to show. Okay. From this, I get that frustration, but at the same point, like, you as a vendor, you were there to service the needs of your client, and that's what you were paid to do. So at the end of the day, if a photographer doesn't want to give you over the images, it's their right not to do that. So that's, I wanted to just fuck that shit up real quick. All right. So
You want me to ask the next question?
yeah,
Okay. But we're going to go into another topic that we could talk about for hours. So let's get right into this one. Sepia Gate brought to light a newsworthy story we both covered. The client requested edits to the images that were beyond the photographer's artistic style. Can you explain the importance of an artistic style clause and why it's important for wedding photographers? And because we messaged you incessantly about this.
Yeah, we were back and forth on DMs voice messaging for a good 5 to 10 days nonstop. Me and you and 50 other industry educators. July was a good time. Okay, so for photographers, make sure that you have an artistic style clause, because what it does is it sets the expectations for the clients that they have adequately looked at your portfolio and they know how you're going to edit your photos. And that clause additionally limits your liability for weather effects to your editing. Here's the thing, though, I will say, you cannot put in an artistic style clause that you as the photographer have this artistic right to do whatever you want, right? There has to be a base understanding at the beginning of the clause, and that's how we draft them here, that your client what they're going to expect to get from you is very similar to what they will receive. And the pro tip here, I think this is the biggest learning lesson from Sepia Gate from photographers. We could go down many different paths when we're talking about what clients have learned from Sepia Gate. But for photographers, my pro legal tip is to document all of the things that you sent to them prior to them booking, whether that's galleries, a booking guide, other collateral or marketing materials that you have that showed your work prior to them booking. And I always say that photographers should make sure that their portfolios are up to date. Also a big learning lesson here, and that you highlight the artistic style clause when they are signing the contract. And this can easily just be done in email format prior to them like clicking the button to sign the contract. I don't think it needs to be like an initialing of that clause. I think that's a little aggressive. But yeah, there's the artistic style clause as a whole was this massive contentious debate during that whole kerfuffle of Sepia Gate.
What a great
But truly what we learned too is we were able to just tweak our artistic style clause even a little bit more. It was totally well-rounded of a clause to begin with, but I swear we switched out like 4 or 5 words to that clause to make it even more robust than it already was. So we at the Legal Page like learned a lot from that experience too.
amazing.
Yeah, that was like you said, July was a great time.
I usually take a little bit of time off in July, and that did not occur.
Paige, I was in fucking Ireland, okay? And like we had to drop the interview, like we did the exclusive interview and we recorded the day before I left for Ireland. Okay, so we dropped the interview the day before I left, and then our response like 3 days later. Crazy time. Okay. Also, the most popular time for our podcast was then. So thank you guys for tuning into the CPA Gate episode. But to the saga and everything like that. But yeah, like we actually highlighted a clip about artistic style clauses and how it's important. And there was a lot of pushback there. And a lot of pushback came from I want to say other photographers as well that weren't industry pros. Okay. A lot of commercial photographers, because in commercial photography, okay, you kind of can morph your style. Okay. Like I'm a commercial photographer. I do a lot of commercial work. So with my commercial work, I kind of give my client the option of what style they want. Okay.
Yeah.
I have my base and what I do, but I also give them the option to kind of like tweak it around. Like maybe they want a little more contrast, or maybe they want like a little bit of more of a lighter and brighter, because I'm working for a commercial contract. I'm actually turning over the rights of the images to them. Okay. At the end of the day, like commercial client is totally different than a wedding client. A wedding client, a lot of people with us being wedding photographers, they're booking a wedding photographer for that artistic style. Okay. Like they are booking that's their main attractor as a wedding photographer is how we shoot, edit, story tell. Those are all key factors there. So, not too many wedding photographers are going to change their style for their client. The client's going to book them for their style. And with Sepia Gate, she kind of learned that the hard way, was that she just thought, the photographer would change her style because she didn't like that edit. She made tweaks and she did a lot of little tweaking to the images, but still within her artistic style. And that's what we tried to highlight there is like, she was making edits, she was making the request, but she wasn't going to change her entire look to be completely different because the client was unsatisfied. So yeah, great time to be alive.
So much pushback from that, honestly,
Yeah.
which was crazy. I can't imagine like pandering my editing style to each and every different type of client. Like that it's so inconsistent. There's no defining style for what you do. So you're attracting tons of different people with different degrees of style preference. It just doesn't make sense. So we were hearing so many people advocating for that. And then we were just like, what? How?
Yeah.
How? Why? But why? Really is what it comes down. But why? You don't have to do that.
Yeah, and the main thing here is no matter where you are on the side of the debate of like changing your artistic style to please your clients or like sticking with your artistic style, it's contractually what was going on at the time, what was the contract that had been signed, what had been sent to the client, what was the understanding at the timing of booking. And the reason that this client had no legal leg to stand on and there was no like actual lawsuit or debacle that ensued is because there was nothing contractually that the photographer did wrong. And the contract itself likely had all of these clauses in it. I did ask the photographer and they said that these clauses were in it. I have not actually looked at the contract, but I'm sure that's what actually occurred because otherwise it would have been a much different legal conversation.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think the client in that instance would have probably referenced that because, you know, she did like 27 fucking videos. So, saw a clip from you yesterday about this, and I kind of want to touch on this a little bit. Okay.
Sure.
What happens if your client's parents want to pay for a vendor service? Okay. Should they be the ones signing the contract or should the client, aka the couple, still sign? Is there any language or even like an addendum that should be added to the contract?
Yeah, the issue comes about when you know a third party that is paying is now involved in this whole contractual situation and you're worried about like who's the client, what roles are at play here. So I just want to preface that because a lot of people say, okay, Paige, you tell me what to do in this situation, but what happens if I don't know someone else is paying? There is nothing you can do there. You don't know like what money is being exchanged behind closed doors. If your clients are paying or they're using someone else's credit card, there's truly nothing you can do. It's actually just your clients paying for the event. When you though become aware and you're like, hey, my Aunt Sally is now paying for the wedding. She wants to use her credit card to get points. I feel like we've all had this happen before. Like, or a parent or whatever. They want to use this card and their name is going to show up. And it's just kind of clients being a little bit more proactive in that situation. They want to make sure they're doing it right. Great. You have good clients. But what you have to do now is actually, because you've been informed, you legally need to have what's called a third-party payer addendum in your back pocket. It's like a one-pager document. It's super, super simple, but it keeps all of the roles really clear regarding payment. Because even if someone else is paying, what oftentimes happens is when money is exchanged, there is power in what they can say and how that event could unfold. They're going to be like, I paid you, so you need to go photograph XYZ. That's what you're trying to prevent in this situation. So your clients sign the contract. If you are doing a wedding, I always suggest both spouses sign the contract for joint and several liability. And also you need model releases from both of them. And then you would have the third party payer sign this addendum. They're not going to get they're not going to get the full contract. They don't need to look at the full contract. They just need payment obligations explained in a document that they're on the hook for other payment obligations. And then the addendum's also signed by the spouses, soon to be spouses, because you want joint and several liability there in payment situations. Like what if a payment fails that's on an automatic payment schedule? Then you need to be able to go to the clients to get that payment. So hopefully that makes sense. It's a really, really simple document. I would say most wedding vendors have this in their back pocket. And if you don't, we'll make sure to link it for you guys in the show notes. It's really nice to have.
Awesome. That's really great. Lauren, I want you to ask the last one. It's the one on the bottom that we have to talk about.
Yeah. So in the wake of recent happenings in the United States, things are getting a little crazy right now. And we've had some questions about this in particular. And we did not know how to we have our opinions on it.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to talk about it. Can a client cancel their contract with you for political differences and receive a refund? What verbiage should be added in order to make sure the vendor is not responsible for providing that refund? Now, this is a question that was asked to us, and we have our thoughts about the whole question itself. So, Paige, I'm going to let you answer from your end, and then we're going to talk about our opinions on this whole topic.
Okay, mine is a pretty straightforward answer here, because we're talking about like contract language and also meeting of the minds. So let me explain that here in a second. If you are opening up on social media about political views, then you're opening yourself up to the risk of people wanting to cancel with you. It feels like from your perspective a voluntary cancellation situation, but at the same time, put yourself in your client's shoes for a second. If they're booking their photographer for their style or wedding vendor, any type of wedding vendor, and their personality, most likely they've been following you. Maybe you didn't post any of this previous to them contracting with you. They had no idea. And then they find out that you've like publicly stated something that's against their beliefs or whom they're comfortable working with on one of the most important days of their lives. You're basically putting them in a very difficult and uncomfortable situation, not to mention you're likely impacting legally the meeting of the minds that occurred at the beginning of the contract. So what that means is, what was the full understanding of the parties prior to signing on the bottom dotted line? If you are changing that now, and I would say you are changing that by putting this out online, I do think the clients absolutely have the right to voluntarily cancel. And because now that understanding has changed, there's probably a refund in place, legally speaking, a full refund, most likely, above and beyond the services that you've already performed for them. I know we could get into that too. Like, what does the partial refund look like or full refund? But I think I would just know that as a business owner, if you haven't publicly expressed anything prior to recently and you're under contract with a bunch of clients, you may have some pushback there and you need to be prepared for that. And maybe you are trying to kind of attract and repel at this point in time for future clients, but you're also impacting the current contracts that are already in play.
Yeah. So to touch on what you said, I think how we feel, our course of action would be to bless and release this client. If they don't feel comfortable, regardless of what side of the table anyone sits on, if they disagree with you on something as big of a deal as this is now talking about their morality, their, maybe it comes down to religious beliefs or something like that. If they are not aligned with you and they feel so strongly about it that they are now approaching you asking for a refund, why on earth would you want to push to work with that person and continue this potentially volatile relationship? It screams bad news. So maybe you want to hold on to that money and that's your prerogative, but in my opinion, it's not worth it,
Yeah, I feel the same way. I feel the same way as Lauren. Is like, okay, if we disagreed politically, religiously, whatever, okay, and as a business owner, and I let my emotions get out there on the web, and people saw those views and everything like that, and they disagreed, then, and they didn't want to work with me anymore, then I would just be like, you don't want to work with me anymore? Fine, here's your money back. Okay. Like that's part of doing business.
it's the risk you take.
It is the risk you take there. So I just think that if you're going to put your politics online as a business owner, okay, and like you have clients in current contract with you, then you are taking that risk that they don't agree with those said politics and they can cancel on you and they can fire you. And just like, I'll be honest with you, if somebody was some way, okay, like say I had a client that I found out was an abuser, okay, I would fire that client. I would 100% fire that client. Like, so I'd have a right to fire that client if I didn't agree with what they do or their beliefs or something like that. Like, it's not to say that like I would give them their money back or like I would probably take that to court, but at the same point, like, I'd have a right to release that client, and just like a client would have the right to fire me for for not agreeing with the scope of politics that I agree with. So it's a touchy, that's a very fucking touchy subject,
Yeah.
okay. And like, in the wake of, what just happened in the country with the election and everything like that, you see, the country is very divided
Very.
down the middle. And basically that you have, clients now saying like, I don't want to work with said vendor, and vendors saying, I don't want to work with said clients. So in the wake of that, we thought it was a very important topic to talk about. But we appreciate you giving your absolute legal expertise on that, because it is something that we did want to ask. Now,
Yeah.
okay, so we want to thank you for coming on the show. Number one, first and foremost. Okay.
Been a long time, Paige.
I'm so happy to be here. I'm like, let's do more of these.
We will.
Oh, 100%. We're gonna have you back on the show, man. Have you? Yeah, we want. Honestly, if you want to come on once a quarter, we would be great to have you on once a quarter, kind of thing. Okay.
We'll do it rapid fire legal Q&A.
Yeah. So, like, what we're getting to is the last part of the interview. We call the after party. Okay. So it's rapid fire questions off the top of your head. Answer any which way you want. But we might have you elaborate on a couple of them. Okay. Just for insight. Okay. So, Lauren, kick it off.
Sure. Band or DJ?
Oh, probably DJ. I remember working with some awesome DJs when I was a wedding photographer, and I just feel like they made the whole night flow a lot better, and they were just rocking. You're probably it depends. It's such a lawyer answer though. Maybe both, because a band is also like really fun for a reception. Bands keep the night going, but I feel like if you don't have like a good wedding planner or MC, like a DJ is probably your best bet.
So fusion DJ. Got it.
Yes. Gotcha there. All right. So, if you were getting married today, would you rather have a big wedding or a small elopement?
You guys are actually asking a really personal question and you don't know it. So my personal preference is actually a small micro wedding. I have actually planned 2 large weddings and 1 elopement in Greece, and I've had to cancel all 3.
Oh my God.
I am married, but I have never had a wedding ceremony, if you can believe it. I've never said vows. It's just crazy. I now have kids. We've just moved on in life. And yes, I have lost non-refundable retainers. I just lost them. Same. So, yeah. I feel like now, because you're asking this right now, I just want like a small micro wedding in my backyard, with like all the people that matter to me most. And to my husband and I, and like that's basically it. Yeah. And yeah.
All right.
There you go.
There it is. All right, Lauren, next one.
Dream destination that you would love to experience. Doesn't have to be wedding related, just a destination.
Switzerland.
Mm.
The Swiss Alps. I just want to hike through the Swiss Alps for like a month. Would be great.
For a month.
I love hiking. I'm from Montana, so that shouldn't surprise you. Just take me to like epic mountainous locations and I'm happy.
You're happy.
Love that. All right. One of my favorite questions asked. Favorite movie of all time?
I don't have one.
I mean, like, all right, top 3.
Okay. Probably like Armageddon, Titanic, maybe The Notebook sprinkled in. I don't know. Those are all like tragic dramas with like a sprinkle of romance. Clearly that's my style of movie.
I love that.
Like, Armageddon is like such a
classic.
It's such a popcorn, like, turn your brain off, watch it. Like, it's so stupid, but it's so entertaining. Like, I love Armageddon. Okay. Like, when I had cable, like, if it was on cable, I just didn't watch it, kind of thing. Now, if like I see it on a streaming service, I'll be like, I need to turn my brain off. Like, I'll put that on as background because it's so stupid, but it's so fun. So get it. Okay.
Period.
Get it a lot. Like, love.
Our generation understands how much we all love Armageddon.
Yeah.
100%.
And the songs, they're so nostalgic in there. The, movie soundtrack. Oh,
God, so good. So good wedding song too, by the way. Like that's the thing. So, all right, Lauren, last one. You got it.
If we were to open up your Spotify right now, what are you currently listening to?
my son's like 3rd birthday playlist, probably.
I was gonna say it didn't have to be music. It could be podcasts. It could be.
No, that's probably it. It's on
Okay.
repeat in my car and at home. My son has pretty good taste though right now. Like, we've got some Shabuzi, some like Chapel Roan, we've got some like Dua Lipa in there, all like non-explicit versions, but
Good taste.
we probably also have some like nursery rhymes too. Parenthood, man.
Oh my
I got-
God.
We know.
I love that. All right. So Paige, thank you so much for coming on the show. Number one. Okay. Finally having you on after all this time. We want to thank you for your insight for everything you do for the community. First and foremost, if you guys,
Yeah, your entire audience should be thanking Paige.
yeah, 100%. Okay. Now, the other thing is, if people don't know, Paige does have a podcast herself. Okay, which is amazing. I listen to it quite a bit. If there's especially a topic that's like kind of pressing or important, I'm tuning in. Okay, if I need like legal advice, plus like it's very good insight, I think, for any business owner to tune in. But Paige, tell us, we're at the time of year, which is really great if you're looking to purchase a contract. It is November. It is Black Friday time. Okay. Tell everybody what you have going on right now.
Yeah, so if you're tuning in right now, we always have a pretty big sale over Black Friday week. And the entire site is discounted, so you can get kind of all of the legal contracts that you need, short forms, a la carte clauses if you already have an existing contract and you just need to like beef up your existing contract with a few things that we talked about today. Now would be a good time to get it at a fraction of the regular price. And I always tell people like the end of the year is a good time to invest into the back end of your business, especially with legal and professional fees because they're 100% deductible at tax time. So it's pretty easy like win-win situation for you there. Like business expense, but also the gift that keeps on giving. You can use the contract over and over and over again for a multitude of different scenarios and clients. And yeah, if you guys have any questions about like what you may need for your specific business, I know our entire shop like the back of my hand. I have read every single word of every single document, and I can probably point you in the right direction better than you like trying to navigate through the website. So just let me know.
So if you guys didn't know as well, okay, during the Black Friday sale, we do have a code. It's TVT10, which is going to get you an additional $10 off the Black Friday promotion. It's booking season's coming up. Like a lot of like people here in the Northeast and everything like that, our books open up in January. And we're booking for now, we're going to be booking for 2026. So if you're in need of a contract, you want to shore up your business, okay, definitely check out the Legal Paige on there, especially during this time of year, Black Friday promotions. Now, Paige, okay, thank you again for coming on. Where can our listeners find you? Social media, website, like where can everyone find you?
Yeah, the best place to find me is the Legal Paige, Paige. It's a play on my first name. And you can find me on Instagram or thelegalpaige.com.
What is the name of your Facebook community? I'm in it, but you tell everybody.
Yeah, if you just type into the Facebook search bar, the Legal Paige community, then you'll find it. And you have to answer a couple questions and then we'll let you in. And we just want to make sure you're a business owner before you jump in.
Love it. Lauren, where can they find you?
You can find me at LaurenO'BrienPhoto.com and Lauren O'Brien Photo and the Feral Photog on Instagram and TikTok. Mike, where can they find you?
At Michael Casara Photo on Instagram, TikTok, as well as my website. And you can find us at the Vendor Table Pod on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, as well as
our Facebook group.
Guys, it's been fun. We will catch you next time.
Okay, bye.
Bye.